y'all? It's your boy JTMM, aka Just 10 More Minutes, aka the Freaking 10. Back here again with another Sabaton history, this time for Uprising. This one was really just, even the official music video was kind of hard to watch, just understanding what was happening and what the ultimate fate of a lot of those people were. And again, it goes back to just, it not being taught as in depth as I think it needs to be, just for the sake of people's feelings. We've got to get out of this mentality of not letting people see reality, right? Reality is a lot of dirty shit went on in our history, but we keep wanting to hide it, and we're gonna repeat it. It's just human nature, unfortunately. So, this is a story I think that needs to be told more. I don't know all the details as I'm about to learn, and I'm sure it's going to be very, very, very difficult to watch. Just seeing Joachim's face right there, you can already tell there's a lot of emotion behind that. So if you see me looking over, I'm trying out some new stuff. You see the new background with the green screen. So just trying some different things just to clean it up. Let me know what you think. Same thing with notifications, just trying to keep things fresh, trying to improve. If you don't improve, you don't grow. It's very simple. Anyway, enough putting this off. I know it's going to be difficult, but that's why I'm here. If I can get people to see this that have never seen it and they learn something from it, I've done my job. So with that being said, let's switch it up. Let's check it out.
There are times when the struggle is so monumental that you know you will not win. You know you will not survive, and you know you will not even make great change, and yet you still make that fight.
And our song Uprising is about that.
25 seconds in, and that is one of the most profound statements I think I've heard on their history. And it puts it into perspective, right? They fought a losing battle, and yet they still did it. Good note.
This is Sabaton History, and I'm Spartacus Olsen. I'm sitting in for Indy today because the current pandemic has left many of us stuck in different places over the past months and thrown our recording schedule around a bit. But I'm also the host and lead writer of the sub-series War Against Humanity on our World War II channel, where I cover resistance, partisan warfare, war crimes, and crimes against humanity during the Second World War, which are also the topics of Sabaton's song Uprising. Okay, so it's July 1944. The Eastern Front is in motion. German Army Group Center has collapsed in the face of repeated offensives by the Soviet First Belarusian Front, now striking deep into Poland. It is widely expected that capturing Warsaw will be the next thing on the list of the Red Army objectives. With the end of the German occupation literally on the horizon, the leaders of the Polish underground resistance, the Armia Krajowa, or Home Army, meet for a secret meeting. After nearly 5 years of occupation, humiliation, and suffering, the resistance of Warsaw is eager to rise up. Radio calls are made to the exiled Polish government in London, who in turn appeal to the British and American authorities for help. The time has come. The Poles will now fight to take back their capital. However, the Western allies are hesitant to promise help outright. They welcome resistance against the Germans, sure, but they do have logistical problems with the fight in France and Italy in full swing at the same time. But mostly, this is the Soviet theater of war, and they don't want to step on any toes, so the Poles will have to rely on Soviet cooperation first and foremost.
I'm letting that sink in for a second because my gut reaction is when someone is calling out for need that can't defend themselves and you have the means to help them, then you help them. But as he said, this is the Soviet, quote, theater war, and you don't want to step on toes. Stepping on toes it should never be a concern when there's human lives at risk. I it's a double-edged sword. I wasn't there, right? But this is one of those times when it really irritates me because here's a country that is fighting for literally its life and nobody's answering them. I really struggle with that. Let's keep going.
So the Poles will have to rely on Soviet cooperation first and foremost. However, the position of the Home Army towards the Soviet Union is one of uncertainty and mistrust, as memories of the pact between Hitler and Stalin that had swallowed and divided Poland are still pretty fresh. If the Poles do nothing, then the Red Army will overrun Poland and the government in exile will be powerless in the newly communist Poland. But if the rising is successful, then Warsaw will be in the hand of democratic Poles. Then they hope that the autocratic Soviet Union can't simply impose its will on Poland, so the Poles have everything to win and everything to lose. However, the Germans still have strong forces in the region. If the resistance rises up before the Wehrmacht there can be wholly engaged with the Red Army, the Germans would most certainly crush them. So the Polish Home Army has to wait for the last possible moment when the Red Army is on the outskirts of Warsaw. Then, with logistical help from the West and cooperation from the Red Army, the insurgents could drive the Germans out of the city. At least one of those two last things has to happen, or the rising is doomed.
Do you remember when the Nazis was the rule on Poland?
So again, they're having to wait till the last minute. I honestly, I always have to remind myself that this is truly history and not happening yesterday. To control the frustration and the anger, because I see stories like this and it pisses me off because they can't win either way, right? Either battle, they truly can't. And yet nobody would help them. I mean, it wasn't me personally, but that just, I'm sorry. That just irritates the hell out of me. Much like when we look at the carpet bombing, I forget, Firestorm, I think was the song. And the way that that it happened there, right? That was dirty. This is dirty. And when countries call out for help and you have the means, then you respond. There is a limit. Totally understand that. During this time, I mean, yes, there's a bigger battle going on and there's strategic plays that are waiting. And so you have to make calls. I get all that. And unfortunately, that's part of history, right? I wasn't there, so I can't say it. But I mean, it just irritates me. Breathe, JTMM, breathe.
Poland, 1939, and the Allies turned away. From the underground rose a hope of freedom as a whisper. Sitting in despair, but they never lost their faith.
Back in February, the resistance fighters outside of Warsaw had made contact with Soviet Marshal Rokossovsky's spearheads. Rokossovsky agreed to principal tactical cooperation, but refrained from promising anything beyond that. And when the Home Army then begins revealing itself to the Soviets, they are greeted with unexpectedly hostile behavior. The available reports of the NKVD, the Soviet Interior Ministry and Secret Police, paint a clearer picture of the situation. They call the Polish Home Army illegal formations, rebels, and bandits. They are white Poles allied to Great Britain and are an old enemy. See, although they currently fight the same enemy, Polish nationalism is contradictory to Stalin's plan. And of course, it's only been a bit more than 20 years since the Poles won the Polish-Soviet War, and one of the people really responsible for the loss of the Battle of Warsaw back then was Joseph Stalin. The NKVD makes it clear that they will not allow any irregular or partisan actions in the rear of their armies. Soon, any Polish resistance fighters caught behind the front line is arrested, disarmed, and removed. By July, more than 30,000 Home Army fighters have been interned by the Red Army. Inside Warsaw, the Home Army is caught between the desire for action and the need for caution. The atmosphere in the city is tense, and Pole and German alike feel that something is about to go down. By August, the Soviet front draws close, and while the Wehrmacht prepares to halt Soviet attacks across the Vistula, the Home Army decides to risk everything. On the night of August 1st, groups of armed young men break curfew and gather throughout the city. At 0500, they strike. German trucks are bombed and German patrols gunned down. They storm the railway office, the post office, and the major power station. Most importantly, they capture storehouses, taking German helmets and weapons, camouflage jackets, and even SS uniforms. To distinguish themselves from their enemy, they wear their white and red armbands or eagle insignias. Around 2,500 insurgents fall the first day, and many civilians are caught in the crossfire. But although they are not able to make the police district or the airport, the day is considered a success. They have been able to free many Jews from the SS concentration camp known as Goose Farm, and even managed to capture a tank. Large parts of the city are now under their control, so they must continue the fight until help arrives. They inform London by radio that the fight for Warsaw has begun. On the night of the 4th, the first British bombers are spotted over the skies of Warsaw. The Poles rejoice as crates filled with weapons and supplies are parachuted in. They have not been forgotten by their allies. The Germans...
So, and I'm going to rewind it a bit. 30,000. Right, think about that. On this first night, there were 20, I think you said 2,500. But yet they started with 30,000. Now, their numbers are probably greater than this 2,500, but 30,000. I mean, I think about that from a sense of, you know, some of the local populations of some of the smaller cities in my area. And some of them are smaller than that 30,000. You know, and I think about just those communities being part of X, you know, view, whatever you want to call it. And then this view says, no, no, no. And they just remove it. Really puts into perspective this time of, you know, and we've talked about millions of casualties, right? Throughout the entire war. But I mean, you think about these that today are city populations that just like this were removed. Now, obviously, it was over a course of time, but that just
are parachuted in. They have not been forgotten by their allies. The Germans, however, are now reacting as well. Anti-insurgency specialist SS Obergruppenführer Erich von dem Bach arrives in Warsaw. He reports back to SS Commander Heinrich Himmler the real scale of the rising, and Himmler flies into a violent rage. He orders von dem Bach to not only crush the insurgency, but to obliterate Warsaw. The home of Polish history and culture is to be liquidated once and for all. The Wehrmacht, however, have their hands full fighting the Red Army, so Himmler orders his own SS troops to Warsaw. What arrives at that city is an assortment of some of the most notoriously undisciplined, criminal, and murderous SS units the Nazis have to offer. The SS Brigade Dielewanga, the Russian SS Rona Brigade, Cossack and Azerbaijani auxiliary regiments, several Einsatzgruppen and military police units, and for a few days, these units take Himmler's orders literally. Fighting the insurgency almost becomes a secondary objective as they kill every man, woman, and child in sight and systematically set their homes on fire. Tens of thousands of people are slaughtered. It becomes so bad, with so many reports of rapes and looting, that von den Bach has officers shot to try and rein in the men. He has to issue orders to not summarily shoot women and children anymore.
No, you stupid son of a bitch. What did you expect to happen? Pardon the language, but Jesus. You sit there and know that these guys are freaking ruthless, and then you want to rein them in, you stupid bastard. See, this is, again, this is where I've got to rein in and realize this was, decades ago. Because this is where, JTMM pushes a button and turns their whole city to glass, I mean, that just, I hate listening to some of this, just justification and then coming back and say, oh, well, we don't do that. Yet you're okay to do that within these concentration camps of eliminating people, but oh, heaven forbid, we're going to send in these guys that are notorious for just absolute being monsters, and then you're going to tell them to hold off? Breathe. Let's keep going.
He has to issue orders to not summarily shoot women and children anymore. The city becomes an urban battlefield. Loudspeakers urge the insurgents to give up before they are all killed. The Luftwaffe and German artillery bomb the rebel districts, but the insurgents prove resilient. They hide in Warsaw's deep cellars and use the destroyed buildings to entrap the enemy. They lure them into killing zones where snipers and grenadiers await them. The ruined city denies the SS their numerical advantage, and after 2 weeks of fighting, neither side has that advantage. The Poles fight from the street barricades and fortified cellars connected by trenches and sewers. Women and children work tirelessly in underground kitchens, hospitals, and makeshift workshops. Days turn to weeks. By the end of August, though, even as the spirit of the insurgency is still high, the outside world is eerily quiet.
Women, men, and children fight. They were dying side by side. And the blood they shed upon the streets was a sacrifice willingly paid.
Even contemporary German sources expect the Soviets to try to link up with the insurgents as quickly as possible. The Red Army advances towards the Baltics and the Balkans, but not on the Vistula. Winston Churchill is among the first to make the assumption that this pause during the most critical moment of the Rising, where any Soviet attack might have tipped the scale, is deliberate. Okosovsky stands just 20 kilometers away from Warsaw. How come, since the end of July, not one Soviet aircraft has been seen flying over Warsaw? No drop has been made, no shelling of German positions. Did Stalin condemn the Rising to its fate? For historians, it's impossible to know Stalin's exact inner motives. Many of the records regarding Poland are still sealed tightly in Russian archives. Reliable intelligence was certainly scarce, and the reports from the NKVD portray the insurgency as a reckless adventure by a gang of criminals and bandits. Polish nationalism has no place in Stalin's great strategy.
But that's really the question, right? Because I'll go back a little bit. The first thought that comes to mind of why would he, right? You've got them fighting, and really, it's a lost cause. But if the German, again, this is just me, hypothesizing. Obviously, this was decades ago. But in my mind, my first thought is if the Germans are destroying the city, there's not really much for them to control, right? In the sense of a lot of the factories and stuff that they were bombing turned the city to ruins. So what advantage, and if I'm a German army, do I go in to a pile of rubble? What advantage does that give me? Yes, it gives me, quote, territory, but at the same time, the time to take to rebuild these cities would be far greater than, going other ways. Now, I'm not a strategist from a military standpoint, so I'm sure there was people, I already know that in the comment section, there's people way smarter than I am that'll say, oh, it's because of this, this, and this. But it's just one of those things that I sit there and think about, and it's like, why would he go and do that? Let's keep going.
The insurgency as a reckless adventure by a gang of criminals and bandits. Polish nationalism has no place in Stalin's great strategy. The British will cancel their airlifts as well because of the inefficiency of sending planes from Italian air bases 1,300 kilometers away. There are actually over 200 US Air Force planes stationed in Poltava, but Stalin denies them airspace over Poland. Inside Warsaw, losses are heavy on both sides. The Germans have been forced to reinforce the SS with crack units like the Hermann Göring Panzerdivision, and slowly but surely the insurgents are pushed back into the city center. Fighting continues unabated in the cemeteries, the suburbs, and the former ghetto, but by September the situation grows desperate. They have held out far longer than expected, but they cannot win a battle of attrition. Down to a quarter of their fighting strength, and with food and medical supplies dwindling, negotiations for surrender begin. But just then, in mid-September, the Soviets suddenly attack the eastern outskirts of Warsaw. It is General Berling's army, made up of Polish communists and collaborators, who attack the German garrisons. Soviet planes now drop supplies, and Soviet artillery shells the city. All surrender negotiations are broken off, and the Polish spirits rise. Volunteers swim the Vistula to greet their allies. But they never return. Reports soon reach the Home Army that those volunteers are arrested and interrogated about their holdouts and their officers, and some are even tortured and shot. Berling's attempt is not the long-awaited Soviet offensive. Rokossovsky does not move, and the insurgency is doomed. On September 18th, a large fleet of flying fortresses make one last supply run. But it is too late. Nearly all of the crates parachute into German territory as the insurgents are by now pressed into a small area in the city center. Left with only a handful of blocks and streets, the Home Army has no real choice. They can either surrender to the Nazis, who will probably murder them, or try to escape to the Soviets, who will likely turn on them as well. The final shot of the uprising is fired on October 2nd. It has lasted 63 days. Civilians and insurgents alike are arrested and sent to concentration camps. The ruins of the western part of the city are now once again occupied by the Germans. In the east, just across the river, the Soviets stand and watch. Poland, once again, is divided between the Germans and the Soviets, but not forever, for the old words ring true. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki nie śpiemy. Poland is not yet lost as long as we live.
You know, we've talked about a lot of...
Wow. Even just saying that got me, I'll back it up a second. Even just saying that got me emotional, because I can only imagine that the passion and the feelings that is within the Polish people, of what the song of just means and stand for their families and such. And that just ooh, that one's gonna be a tearful one, I can tell you that right now.
you know, we've talked about a lot of stuff from different songs of yours that have to do with the Second World War, because you have a bunch of them and stuff. And you've met people and relatives, like Audie Murphy's relatives and stuff, Helen Back and stuff. Did you guys ever meet anybody that actually had anything to do with the uprising itself?
Yeah, several actually. I remember the first couple of people we met. Obviously, we're talking about people who are really old, quite possibly dead now. This was back in 2010. A lot got lost in translation. It was an emotional experience, but it was really hard because, you know, speaking through a translator at a museum, we were at the Warsaw Uprising Museum, but a few days later, we were still in Poland then, we heard of a woman who had fought in the uprising. Her name was Anna.
Wow.
And she had moved to Sweden, actually, after everything happened there.
At the end of the war?
At the end of the war. But it was really one of those moments that I will never forget in my life, because we were speaking Swedish. Yeah. Old people in Poland, for obvious reasons, aren't very good at English.
Yeah, they're not very good at Swedish in general either.
But she lived in Sweden from, I guess, somewhere in the 40s until 2006, I think it was, or 2009.
Back.
So she just recently moved back when her husband died, I think it was.
Okay.
And speaking with her and her experiences, and it is so far away from the action movies and everything. I mean, her main role in the uprising, being a young woman, or a young girl maybe, wasn't, you know, frontline combat. Right. But of course, she had to. They captured a tank, a German tank. I can't remember if it was a Leopard or something. They actually captured it.
Very cool.
Yeah. And the story she would tell, it is nothing like the movies. Her stories of, delivering messages through the sewers and how cramped and tiny it was. I have no idea how it was, but at the Warsaw Uprising Museum in Warsaw, they have sort of reconstructed those sewers so you can walk through them. And they start out pretty big, then they get pretty small, and you can, you know, try and, you know, how they would move.
See how you could get, how far you could do it?
Oh man, if you're even slightly claustrophobic, you're fucked. Yeah. Her tale how such an obviously extreme circumstances, living under those circumstances, and still life goes on.
That's, you know, I'm glad that you put that out here, that it's not that the Warsaw Uprising or any war or any combat that you sing about and that we talk about is not what it looks like in the movies, because I think people misunderstand that, and I think people lose track of that this is the stuff we talk about on this channel and the stuff that they sing about. It's very interesting, and it's important to remember these things for a variety of reasons, but it's not cool.
Nope.
It's not what you see in the movies. The movies, they want you to watch the story, great, but they also have to give you entertainment value, and war is not entertainment value. It's not cool.
No, it's so much boredom. I mean, how fun would it be a movie about World War I? Somebody getting sick in a trench, going back to a hospital, going back to the trench, taking one step up, dead.
And that's your video game, and that's 3 weeks you've been playing the game, and that's your first time over. Well, I mean...
And I hate to cut Indy off, I'm gonna back it up, but that's, you know, I use the word fascinating a lot, and I think I may have used the term cool, but that's exactly it. It's not in the sense they're talking about. I think y'all know that about me. None of this is cool. It's, pardon the language, but it's fucking heartbreaking. You know, when I do these histories, you know, the songs are great. The songs are cool, right? In the sense of what they're teaching us. That's the cool part, is they're able to take those histories and tell us these stories and make us want to learn. That to me is cool. But you have to be emotionally ready to listen to some of this, right? I smile because I picture what a unique opportunity to speak with this woman that was there, right? That could tell the stories of climbing through the sewers to deliver messages and what her role was. And when they captured the tank, what that felt like. And, I would imagine even towards the end. And, but at the same time, that's shit you can't unsee. And I don't think that it's anything, you or I could ever imagine seeing with our own two eyes in today's age. Unfortunately, there's some of this going on that's not talked about, and it's not in the mainstream news, and it's, it can be in smaller countries that are under these, regimes like this, that these stories don't get out. But the things that these people lived through back then, yeah, they're right. It's not cool in the sense of what war was, but it's how they're sending us the messages and telling the story is cool to me. And I don't mean that in the sense of what happened, but using the method of music to teach. That's freaking brilliant.
Video game, and that's 3 weeks you've been playing the game,
Yeah.
and that's your first time over. Well, I mean, think of even some people we've covered, like Simo Hey,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he would spend days iced in with ice to make a sing. There's nothing exciting or romantic about that. It is specifically mechanical, and it is specifically you can overcome the boredom. I couldn't. I'd have to pee. I would. I'd have to pee at some point,
But in a sense, I mean, I'm not comparing a warrior's life
Oh, no,
to,
no,
to
no, I
what
didn't
we,
mean
what,
like
we,
that,
what we
yeah.
are doing.
Yeah.
However, there is one similarity. What we are doing as musicians
Yeah.
is sort of the Hollywood version, because what you guys see is us going on stage or hearing the album.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the rehearsals, you are not seeing the songwriting, the retakes, all of that. I'm by no means drawing the comparison, but it's a natural thing.
No,
I mean, no movie would be interesting if it was like the trenches in World War I think.
You're right, and
But this is one of those where I wish I was there. That's a really goofy face. I stopped him on. I apologize, Joachim. I don't know of anybody that would ever say that of them, right? I mean, I get what he's saying, that they are the Hollywood version of it. But and they, do put emphasis to make the concert appealing. But that is the beauty of the teaching, right? I think that's what amasses such a following, is they tell these stories and they get these stories out, and for people that are experiencing it and learn about it and are cheering them, I would almost just say, dude, and I know it doesn't mean this way, but it's like, they're not cheering what you're singing about it. They are applauding you for your masterful way of teaching it. I mean, I can't put that any other way. I gotta. Okay, that's a much less goofy face. I didn't take it that way, and I don't think Indy did at all. I get exactly what he says. Yes, there are retakes. There are, a lot of the work. I mean, like, if you look at just a reaction channel, right? The time it took me to go in and program all of these buttons, get the timings right to be able to switch cameras and this and that. And, it is a lot, but but that's not for me to go, hey, my presentation's cool. It's again to make it appealing visually as we talk through things. If I came in with a black screen behind me and just the video, I'd probably be sitting at 10 followers, right? No matter what the topic is, you have to put a layer of that in there. So I don't fault him for that. And I don't think any Sabaton fans do. I get where he's coming from, but yeah, I don't think that's a worry on any of our minds.
The trenches in World War I think.
You're right, but people, especially with World War I and World War II, people say, "What's the most realistic video game?" Or what do you think would be the most realistic? The most realistic video game is that you spend 3 or 4 weeks hastily training as an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old who lied about his age in England and stuff, and you get sick and you meet some new people and you hurt yourself, and then you go and you get another 3 weeks and you rotated through the lines and stuff, and and you get killed in the first 20 seconds.
Yep.
And then you have to start the game all over, and you've just
Yeah.
spent like 8 weeks playing that character, and that's as far as you got.
And you're lucky because you get to start over.
That's true.
They didn't.
Wow.
That's a great point about Call of Duty and all of these military style games, you know, that these kids are playing these days. And I've played it before, and you know, there's a couple times I played with friends and it was really, really fun in the sense of a video game. But I don't know that many people put that into perspective of what this is based off of, right? And I think that's where I get irritated that these stories aren't told to appreciate what you're put into. And there are some that play these games more realistically. And I use that phrase lightly, more realistically, but they do spend that time to do a lot of strategic pointing and things like that. Not in the sense of where they're going and training and dealing in this reality. That's unfortunately not something we can do in today's world, but there are people out there that do take it so seriously and model it after a lot of the strategic points of what went on. But I think that's the glorification that irritates me, is just they don't truly understand what these games are based on, right? And how if none of this would happen, and the millions of lives lost, they wouldn't be sitting in a comfortable chair in their, I was going to say parents' basement, but that would be rude because I play the game sometimes too. But they wouldn't have that luxury, right? We wouldn't probably have the technology we have today. And it's just that loss of appreciation because we're so damn busy trying to erase history. We're going to repeat it. And it's going to be at a much greater scale and a much deadlier scale with technology today. Enough of mine. Let's finish this one out.
Well, you know what? This episode, it is a hard-hitting episode. And to her, to Anna, and to all the other Annas, and all the other uprisings that were literally hopeless situations, but were still illustrative of the depths of the human spirit, way to go.
Well said, Indy.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you so much for the support with the community. All the Patreons, everyone who's helping, sharing this. We really love doing this, and thanks to you, we can keep on doing it. So keep on doing what you do, and we will keep on doing what we do. Thank you.
Always do my part. You know, just watching that at the end got that damn onion ninja got me. Let's let him make an appearance there. There he is. You know, Indy said it's best. You know, for those that are uprising, you know, way to go. It's stories like that that do inspire people to stand up for what they believe in, and knowing that there's a price for it. And I think today's world, that if people stand up for stuff and fight over stuff that's BS, right? For here in the States, we hear about these road rage instances because someone cut them off, so they shoot them. What? Or because they disrespected them and called them a name. How about you take your asses back to this time and deal with someone invading your country and wanting to take your life and see how you react to that. It's something I'm extremely passionate about because today's society is full of a bunch of freaking idiots. You know, and that's why I love my beautiful community, because y'all are some of the most intelligent people that I get to interact with, that get it, right? Y'all get it. We get it. The community gets it. And we appreciate bands like this that go in and tell history. And for me to be able to spread this, you know, I doubt I'll have a following like Sabaton, but even if some one person comes in and sees this and understands what they're teaching about and the message, you know, of how we need to treat people and what happens so that we don't repeat it, you don't know how that influences that person and what they could go on to do as far as positivity. And if I'm able to do that with one person in the entire span of my channel for as many years as it goes on, I will deem that a success. It's already a success with everybody I've met here. You know, I freaking adore y'all. I look forward to your messages, especially with the Sabaton and the history, because it shows that people of the world can get along, and it doesn't matter what freaking color we are. It doesn't matter religion. It doesn't matter orientation or any of that other shit that the world puts on us. We're simply friends that love music. I say this every video and it gets me choked up and I go on a rampage. Frick. It gets me so emotional, the stupid shit we do today. And that goes on, and especially here in the States. Maybe I can make a video that'll go viral one day and it'll pull everybody's heads out of the dark places they're at. But that won't be today. Y'all know I appreciate you. Let me get my final thoughts. Y'all know I appreciate you. You know that everything I do on this channel wouldn't be possible without y'all's support. For those that have made donations through the buymeacoffee.com/JTMMTV, you appreciate it more than you'll ever know. It's one of those, when I tell my wife about that, you know, we make decent money. We don't make great money. You know, we make enough to get by with the family and be somewhat happy. But it's those little donations like that that changes the day from good to great, because we're able to take that money. I can reinvest it here, whether it's equipment or with Christmas, put just that other smile on the kids' faces that they may not have had, you know. And so it's always appreciated. It's never required, plain and simple. The subscribing and stuff like that is what really makes my day. It's that little stuff like that that helps make their day. It's not about me at that point, right? So I truly, truly appreciate it, but it's never required. The comments, all of that is what makes my day. Anyway, enough of that. Let's do some shameless plugs, because I tested them. I moved them around and played with them, so why not try them live, right? Let's just try it. If you like it, leave your comment. If you like it, hit that like button. Let me know what you think. And if you like it, hit that subscribe button. That just lets me know as a content creator like that I put out, and it just helps me that drive to continue to do it. Obviously, the community is growing. We're only 50 away from 2,500. We were just at 2,000, you know, a month ago. Now we're 2,500, and then another 1,000. I mean, that to me still boggles my mind. But again, it lets me know as a content creator and just as a human that I'm on the right path. I don't need an extra 1,000 followers a month or 10,000. I want the community to grow organically. And it's our community. I love y'all. I'm going to turn this off before I keep on babbling, because you know I will. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Like, subscribe, share. Y'all know what I'm about. JTMM, I'm out.